Vegas also has some opinions on the contenders. Okay, we got 5 contenders. And they're their early odds, their futures, whatever. But I want to talk about the variables around these contenders. What are the questions we have for these teams if they were to win a national title? What's the number one question we need answered? I'm so glad you asked. Let's talk about it. Vegas likes Georgia as the best odds to win the national title. Surprise, surprise. Have them at plus 220. My question for Georgia is Carson Beck as advertised? Is 15 going to be slinging that pill around like a shady pharmacist? Do we know what we're getting in him? Because I saw him in the spring game now. I saw Carson Beck in that spring game. It fired me up, dude. Like, if that's what Georgia's going to be offensively, I love Stetson Bennett. God bless him. Hope he never pays for another thing in Athens, Georgia. But Carson Beck, man, he's got that arm talent. Looked like a technician behind that offensive line in Georgia. This thing in Athens, that roster, it's not built to shift gears. You know what I mean by that. Any of y'all that drive stick, I don't drive stick, thank the Lord. But when you drive stick, there's potential for that thing to stall out if you don't shift gears properly. You kind of got to shift it one way, and then eventually the car makes some noises and eventually gets into gear. That's not the thing at Georgia now. We've looked at that roster. We know how Kirby Smart recruits. We know that culture. It's not built to shift gears. It's built to be pedal to the metal. Let's go get us a 3rd ring. And so my question, going back to Carson Beck, if he's as advertised, they don't have to shift gears. They just keep this thing rolling. Coach Bobo now calling the plays. Carson Beck, QB1. You would imagine the defense is still just stocked with ridiculous ability. 70% of the production is back from a year ago. Is Carson Beck someone you have to account for, like we saw Stetson Bennett be in 21? Or is he someone that propels Georgia, like we saw Stetson Bennett be in 2022? So is Carson Beck as advertised? That's the number one question I need answered for the Dogs. Because if we see Carson Beck look like how he looked in that spring game, God bless the rest of the country. God bless the rest of the SEC. God bless the rest of college football. But Georgia will be on a tear. All right? Really quickly, make sure you're locked in right here. Subscribe to the On3 YouTube channel. We talk ball every single day. You're watching a college football show in May. If you're on podcast, you listen to a college football show in May. We love you so much for it. Listen, we're cut from the same cloth, okay? We're family. Make sure you're locked in right here, all right? Now, the second best odds in Vegas. Got Ohio State at plus 600. Here's my question for them. Similar to Georgia, a little bit different, but similar. Does this Ferrari have a driver? Fancy way of saying you got Devin Brown, you got Kyle McCord, 2 5-star options, okay? Not bad. A lot of people would give their left arm and a special teams unit to be able to have that problem. But I love what they have personnel-wise. Marvin Harrison Jr. probably could have been a top 5 pick this season. Dude is that good. The personnel on the defensive side, I think, is what gets slept on. JT Tuimoloau, I've told you on here, all Big Ten, written all over him. Like Gary Bigtier, he's got All-American written all over him. Same thing with JT Tuimoloau. I love what they have with Jack Sawyer on the defensive end. I love Tommy Eichenberg, leader of that defense, coming back. I love what they did in the portal. Jahad Carter at safety, Denzel Burke at corner. I love all the pieces here at Ohio State. So the car is built really nice. The car has all the bells and whistles. We know we can go full throttle with this thing. Do we have a driver? You and I both know, man, you have a Ferrari, you take that thing 100 miles an hour, that's great. But if you crash the car, it's on the driver. Doesn't matter how fast the car is if you just are steering off the road every now and then. So do they have a driver? Because C.J. Stroud, there's a lot of a narrative around about how he didn't beat Michigan and Ohio State didn't look great those days. Listen, he still went over 3 bills in those games. If you don't have a quarterback like C.J. Stroud, what do those games look like, final score? I don't know. It's a team game. You don't pin it all on C.J. Stroud, but I just think that question has to be asked. Do you have a driver at Ohio State to run this Ferrari? That's my question. Next up, Trey Andes, Alabama Crimson Tide. They're at plus 600. Everybody and their mama saying, Nick Saban's lost his touch. Oh, look, they went and got Tyler Buckner from Notre Dame. Couldn't even start at Notre Dame, and they might bring him to start at Bama. Alabama, man, selling them down the river. Well, Vegas isn't. They're telling you third best odds. I mean, tied for second best odds if we want to be real. They're tied with Ohio State to win the national title. What does the makeover look like in Tuscaloosa? What does the makeover look like? They got a new DC, got a new OC. They're going to have a new quarterback, whether it's Milrose, Simpson, Lonigan, Holstein, Buckner. They're going to have somebody new behind center. What does the makeover look like? Because listen, we all know this. Sad but true. Not all makeovers are created equal, okay? You and I both have had that friend that comes back from getting a makeover, and this is not gender specific. It could be a guy or a girl. They try something new. They get a makeover. They come out, and it's like, man, the old way looked better. The old way was, this is not you. I understand what you're trying to do. I like it, but this is not a good look. Or is it, wow, much better. New you, I like it, this suits you. What's the makeover look like? Because they have 125th ranked returning production, meaning this will be a new Alabama team. Staff, roster, all of it. It's looking new at Alabama. What does the makeover look like? The quarterback position is going to get most of the attention, and it probably should. I'm fascinated to see what that looks like during the fall, just by nature of all the newness that we've talked about so far with talking about Alabama. What does the makeover look like? Because here's the thing, man. I'm not betting against Saban. I'm not doing it. I might think contrary to his success, I might predict differently, but I'm not putting any money down against Alabama. Just not a good way to live life. So as long as Nick Saban's running the show, Alabama is very much so going to be alive. And here's the thing, man, they're motivated. They've heard all that talk about Saban losing a step, about Alabama not being Bama anymore. They've heard all that. I promise you. You know what that is? Ammunition. Just giving Alabama more and more ammunition, more and more fuel to the fire. I don't know what this is. Those of you listening on podcast, don't worry about what I'm doing with my hands. I'm trying to, I guess, like feed a horse or something, feed a machine, because Alabama is a machine. You do not want to give them more fuel to work with. All right, so keep an eye on Bama. They're at plus 600. My question is, what does the makeover look like? A team that has national title aspirations right behind Alabama. They're at plus 1,000. It's the Michigan Wolverines. Is there another evolution for them? Do we see more balance? Because that's the thing now. They have a lot coming back, too, defensively, offensively. I mean, they have 4/5 of that Joe Moore award-winning offensive line coming back. 2 dogs in the backfield, and Donovan Edwards and Blake Corum. It all comes back to what are we doing offensively? Is it J.J. McCarthy's turn to really wheel and deal here? We talked about it on a separate one-off video. Shout out to y'all that are subscribed. You probably saw that video. Is there another evolution for Michigan? Is there another evolution? Because when Michigan put everybody on notice, when we really started taking Michigan seriously as a college football public, it was when J.J. McCarthy came out against Ohio State and was just wheeling and dealing. Over 260 yards, 3 touchdowns. He ran one in. Like, the offense went through J.J. McCarthy that day, and we saw the dividends. And then we all start saying, okay, we got to take Michigan seriously now. Michigan's a real national title contender. Is that what we see from them in 2023? Is there more balance? When you can run the ball for over 200 yards a game, you do that, okay? I'm not telling you to switch up the identity, but I am saying maybe just a little more balance, maybe a little more of a vertical presence. Maybe you give the pots and the pans and all the ingredients and the oven mitts to J.J. McCarthy, and you say, here you go, brother, let's go cook. Maybe you let J.J. McCarthy cook. I'm just saying, all right? That's my question for them. Do we see another evolution? Because I think that's what you need. I think plan A for Michigan is still steady. I think it works great, but you got to have a couple other answers to beat a Georgia, to beat Ohio State should you see them in the playoff. I know you beat Ohio State twice in a row now in the regular season, so I'm not doubting that. Is there another evolution to what Michigan does offensively? I'm curious to see it, but I'm fired up for it. Now, here's another one. Last one we're going to talk about here, the USC Trojans at plus 1,600. Can you imagine how mad the college football world would be if USC ended up winning a national title? We're not going to jump into that too much, but you and I both know if a West Coast team got it done, I don't know what we'd do with ourselves when it comes to the storylines around college football and how it's going to be so regional. It's so regional, well, a team on the West Coast just won the whole thing. And Vegas is giving them plus 1,600 odds to do it. So here's my question for USC. Is there enough there on that roster to turn Caleb Williams from the equalizer to the edge? Because here's the deal last year. A lot of time you talk about USC and you talk about Caleb Williams and you say, man, USC, they don't have a great rush defense. And yeah, they get turnovers, but they're not very solid on that side of the ball. But guess what? They got Caleb Williams, might not matter. Caleb Williams is going to be the one that kind of levels the playing field. USC, #1 ranked portal class. Bear Alexander, shoring up the defensive line. Anthony Lucas, shoring up the defensive line. Mason Cobb, going to be a leader of that defense at linebacker. Does that make it so, Okay, well, USC actually does have a solid defense. Now, you look at the roster, the overall attributes, those of you that have played NCAA 14, you know what I'm talking about here, is now Caleb Williams not just the guy that gets you back even, he's the guy that puts you over the top. He's more than the equalizer, he's the edge for you. Can you weaponize number 13 is what I'm trying to ask here, because he's a generational talent. Tell you what, man, we have not seen something like Caleb Williams in college football, and I don't know how long. We may never see something like him again. Like he is maybe a one of one when it comes to the college football landscape and what we get to see from him. For USC, man, you don't want to waste the last year you got with him. You got him for 1 year, okay? Like, we can talk ourselves into, well, he's got more eligibility. Yeah, but is he coming back? No. No, he's already talking about how he would like to go to the Dolphins should he be drafted. And he wasn't just saying that out, on his own. He was prompted with that question. But, like, he's already, for some people, he's already going to be the number 1 pick next year. And I'm one of those people as well. He'll be the number 1 pick next year. You got 1 year with him. Can you make it matter? Can you make him more than just the guy that gets you even? Can you make him your edge? Yes, he's going to win you football games, but is he going to win you football games because the offense has to score 50? Or is he winning you football games because your offense scored 50, but your defense only allowed 25? That's the world I want to live in from a USC fan. So that's the big question I have for USC. They're at plus 1,600. So to recap it for you, Georgia, is Carson Beck as good as advertised? Ohio State, you got a Ferrari of a roster. Ferrari of an offense. Does that Ferrari have a driver? Kyle McCord, Devin Brown, 2 5-star options. Remains to be seen. Alabama, what does the makeover look like? Not all makeovers are created equal. Bama's going through a makeover right now. What does it look like on the back end of this thing? Michigan, do we see another evolution? It's no secret, J.J. McCarthy, he's got a talented arm. Do they let him cook a little bit more this year? Is that the approach for Michigan? A little more balance? We'll see. For USC, are you able to allow Caleb Williams to not just be the equalizer, but to be your edge? I'm fired up to watch it. Those are my questions for the contenders, and we're gonna track this thing like a hawk.